Okay, so everyone can accept recording. I am Dr. Amy Leisdring. I am the Associate Dean of Inclusive Student Success for the College of Graduate Studies. And I'm really happy today that we are welcoming Dr. Patience Bryant. She's the Director of Black and African American Equity for the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion on campus. To talk about imposter syndrome. And some of you might have filled out the student needs survey that the College of Graduate Studies gave out in the fall. I'm just about finished analyzing the results and we will be releasing those, but there was actually quite a few students that mentioned having this as an issue. So I'm really glad that we're able to do this today. So I'd like to ask everyone to please mute your microphones. I think there's a couple people that aren't muted because I hear some background noises. So go ahead and mute your microphones. And then I just wanted to say, there will be a question and answer session at the end. And you could either type your questions into the chat or actually Patience will be running that. I'll be running the chat. You could raise your hand or indicate to her that you have a question. If you want it to be anonymous, you can just send it to me personally, and then I will read it. So in the chat, I'm Amy Leisdring. So with that, I will turn it over to Patience. So thank you so much, Patience.
I had to unmute myself. Good afternoon, you all. Thank you for joining us on a Friday. I am Patience Bryant. I use she, her, hers, they pronouns. I am the Director for Black and African American Equity. I have been in this role since December of last year. Prior to that, I was working at Long Beach State as the Director for Student Conduct and Ethical Development. That is what brought me to California. And I'm so excited to talk to you all about imposter syndrome. We all have heard the term before. We're all feeling it in some way. My hope is for us, I have some slides, of course, I want to share, but my hope is that this is an engaging conversation about how some things that we're feeling, some things that we're facing, and how some ways to overcome or work through imposter syndrome. So what is imposter syndrome, right? So it is loosely defined as doubting your abilities and feeling like a fraud. It can affect high achieving people. Some people feel like it affects high achieving people even more than less achieving folks, because high achieving people often find it difficult to accept their accomplishments, and many question whether they're deserving of accolades. So as graduate students, as a former graduate student, I definitely felt those feelings. As a professional, I feel those feelings as well. And this is kind of a little diagram to kind of put a picture to imposter syndrome, kind of shows how we think what other people know is a lot more than what we know, but in reality, we pretty much all know the same thing. So what are some characteristics of imposter syndrome? I think the number one is self-doubt, right? So you're feeling like you don't know, you feel that you're not as smart as other people, you don't feel comfortable in your space. You worry that people are going to find out you're a phony, that you feel as though at any moment you're going to be found out as a fraud, like you don't belong where you are, and you only got where you are by dumb luck. It can affect anyone, no matter their background or status or degree of expertise. Another characteristic is overachieving. Often folks who feel imposter syndrome, and that's a person who does at times, you feel a need to work harder than you already are. You feel like you're not working hard enough to achieve and to reach your goals, or to pass an exam, or to get your research done, or to find a job, or to apply for another graduate program. There's also a fear of not living up to others' expectations. When you're a graduate student, and that impresses people. Oh my gosh, you're in graduate school, I could never do that. And it's a little extra pressure because you feel like, okay, I have to be perfect now because everyone's looking at me as this graduate student to do amazing things. So there's a level of pressure that we have placed on ourselves because we feel like other people have such high hopes for us. Another characteristic is feeling uncomfortable receiving praise. I personally also struggle with receiving praise because there's a part of us that feels like, well, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm doing my job. So why are you rewarding me for making an A? I should be getting an A. Or why are you rewarding me for getting a grant for this project? That's part of my position in my job. There's also feeling constant pressure to achieve. That goes back to overachieving. And then as well as it comes with imposter syndrome, comes with feelings of feeling stressed, anxious, sometimes depressed because you just feel down, like you're not working as hard as you could, you're not achieving what you should, but in reality, you actually are. So there actually are different types of imposter syndrome. I feel like as graduate students, you all may have experienced one of all of these. I have and continue to feel these feelings as well. First is the perfectionist, right? Where you feel like your work could be better. You can get an A, well, this should have been an A plus. I should have gotten this assignment done quicker, or I should have applied for 2 summer internships instead of the 1 summer internship. The superhero, feeling the need to push yourself to work as hard as possible. Many of us feel like if we're not doing something, we're not achieving and we're not working hard. So there's a feeling of like, I have to push myself. I have to keep adding, I have to keep volunteering. I have to keep saying yes in order to feel accomplished. Then there's the expert, always trying to learn more, and you may be highly skilled, but you underrate your own expertise. So folks can tell you, hey, you're the expert, you're the content expert. It's why we picked you, why we want you here, but you still continue to question even what they're saying because you don't feel like the expert. Then there's the natural genius. Feeling unworthy or guilty or shameful if you cannot easily complete a task or achieve a goal on the first go. And knowing that life comes with failure, sometimes you're not going to get things right the first time, but when you're feeling like an imposter, like you don't belong, when you fail, it hurts almost 3 times, 4 times harder. And then a soloist, a person with imposter syndrome that has extreme difficulties asking others for help. And this is a big one because many people feel like, well, if I belong here, if I've earned my spot here, I should know everything I need to do. And so if I ask someone for help, they're going to find out that I'm an imposter, like I'm truly an imposter, I'm a fraud, and I don't belong here. And then we have conversations about adding identity and imposter syndrome. Depending on how you identify different identities, visible and non, it can add to levels of that imposter syndrome feeling. One of them is underrepresentation. It can be very difficult when you're in a space, when you're in an academic program, when you're on a job, when you're in an internship and you don't see anyone who looks like you. So it may question, do I belong here? Why did they select me? Am I the diversity pick that is check a box to say, yes, we have a diverse staff or a diverse faculty or a diverse student body? Am I the person? Am I the token in this position? There may be times people may say that to you, oh, you're here because they needed somebody of color to represent. So that's why you got selected. And that can get into your head, that can impact you, that can tear you down internally. And we also have the pressure of stereotypes. I identify as a Black woman, and a stereotype that I call it the gray cloud that follows Black women. It's a stereotype that the angry Black woman stereotype. And that's a very hard stereotype to shake for many Black women when they're in graduate school or when they're in their professional job, because as, like any other human beings, we have feelings. We get happy, we get upset, we get passionate, we get sad. But we get so scared that people are gonna think we're angry when we're showing these feelings that we try to put up a wall, because I don't want to be the angry Black woman. I don't want to be a stereotype. I don't want people to think all Black people are like this, or they won't hire any more Black people or select any more Black people for this program. So I have to do everything I can to either blend in, be neutral, or overachieve so they won't find out who I really am. Also, for some of us culturally, we have the mindset if one wins, we all win. So many of our family members are here supporting us, depending on us, rooting for us in many spaces where they're like, if you do this great, the whole family is proud. So there is a fear that if we don't succeed, we're going to let a whole bunch of folks back home down. That also ties into double consciousness. So Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, decades ago, he wrote about double consciousness in regards to Black Americans living in the United States, saying they live in two worlds. They live in Black America, and then they live in the rest of America, and often they have to move between both worlds. And many of us are in those spaces as well, where we have multiple worlds that we have to live in. And when you feel like you can't fully be yourself in any space, it does bring feelings of doubt, self-doubt. It brings the fear, those feelings of imposter syndrome, because in one space you have to be a scholar, you have to excel academically, but you have to be able to go home and talk to your family who may not be familiar with academia. You may have to go to your job. Many of us have to wear masks. Many of us have to code switch. Code switch means change the way we speak, the way we act around certain other people, depending on the audience, because once again, we don't want to be a stereotype. We don't want to be looked as a token. We don't want to be picked on because of our identities. We don't want to be othered as an other, meaning we don't want it to be pointed out that I'm different from everyone else in this space. And I want to pause and acknowledge a comment. Thank you, Mary. The comment says, the combination of this conversation and the AAPI perfectionism talk earlier this week has made me feel very seen. I'm happy. I'm glad to know that I can contribute. This conversation can contribute to that. It is very difficult. And once again, I speak from my experience and my identities as a Black woman, but there can be times as people of color, there's an extra level of pressure where you wonder if I belong. Is double consciousness like intersectionality? I've never thought about it that way. No, in this space where when W.E.B. Du Bois talked about double consciousness, he talked about two separate worlds. However, as a human, yes, we do have multiple identities. So there's a space where I am intersectional in terms of identify as a Black woman, but yes, when I go into two separate worlds, I have to sometimes, am I Black first, am I the woman first, who am I in these spaces? So there is an overlap. There might be a paper there, thank you for bringing that up. I never thought about it in that way, but there is some cross there where your identities, all of your identities may not be able to show up at the same time in different spaces. And that can be very difficult when you are a student, when you're trying to navigate your graduate career, because I think graduate school is a career. When you're trying to navigate this graduate space, it can be very difficult because the pressure of not being your whole self can add an extra level of pressure that other folks may not have to experience. So what's the difference between the imposter syndrome version of double consciousness and the phenomenon that we all wear many hats, even in our own family or even in the silent version I in the voice? Isn't this a given for all people? Yeah, some of us do wear many hats, but the idea of double consciousness is that depending on your identity, you are truly living in different spaces. So I'll use myself as an example. I identify as a Black American woman, and I'm from the South, I'm from Florida, my family's from Georgia, and there are many people in my family who have never gone beyond high school. So when I go home with my family members, there are certain conversations I'm just not gonna have with them. There are certain things we just won't talk about. There are certain spaces where folks may think that I may think I'm better than them because of my academic achievements. So I have to shut off a part of me to be in that space. To feel welcome in that space, which is my Black home, my Black culture, my Black family. Granted, we're not a monolith, so we're all different, but in many spaces to feel my full Blackness, I have to cut off some of me. And then when I come to work, when I'm in this academic world, I have to change the way I speak. Sometimes I have to be very conscious of what I wear. I have to think about my hair. I'm very mindful of, I'm from Miami, so I call my Miami tongue. I work very hard in many spaces so that my Miami tongue does not come out. I am carrying some pressure of knowing that I have to do this job right, because if I don't do this job right, they may never ever hire someone else to do this job again who looks like me, or they may not create another position similar to mine to help another group on campus. So that is the extra pressure that certain identities feel when they're in these spaces. And students also feel that in graduate programs, when you're in these very competitive graduate programs, where there are only a certain amount of slots, certain amount of spaces, certain amount of funding, you are carrying sometimes a whole group of folks on your back in these worlds, that these multiple worlds that you're trying to navigate. And I would say it has not gotten any easier sometimes for me personally. I've been doing this for a long time, and it does not get any easier at all. Trying to explain my job to sometimes family members, they think, are you still in school? I'm like, no, I work at a university. So I find it funny now, but it is what it is. And that's double conscious, living in those multiple worlds. And essentially, I'm very transparent. Essentially, what W.E.B. Du Bois was saying, you have to be Black enough for Black people, but not too Black for white people. That's essentially what he meant when he wrote it, because he was talking to that particular audience. We have a wonderful comment here. I have the same experience when you're a first generation student. It's difficult to not be able to relate to your own family in that way. The people who know you, who are supposed to know you best. And yes, it can be difficult. And sometimes our own families, they want to know what we're doing, but sometimes we also get frustrated, and we may say, you just don't understand. And therefore we cut them out, and we're going to give them an opportunity to learn about what we're doing as students in the profession. Yes, I'm autistic Latina, and I have to act very differently out in the world where my autistic traits are not accepted and often ridiculed. Yes, so living in multiple worlds, having multiple identities, and trying to figure out, how do I survive this space? Which identity do I try to hide or lessen so that I am welcomed in these multiple spaces? Thank you. So one thing you want to think about, how do you navigate this? Sometimes the feelings go away, sometimes they they lessen, sometimes they're always there. And what are some tools that you can use to navigate this space? So we talk about mentors a lot, but many people don't talk about coaches and sponsors. So a coach is task oriented. Coaching is a partnership. So a coach will talk to you. So they focus on getting you to your destination while empowering you along the journey. The coach understands that you already have answers and you just need to be asked the right questions. So coaches are normally short-term. They can get you to another goal. They can get you to an end goal. Coaches may help you get an internship. Coaches may help you get a job. Coaches may help you get your degree. But then you also have the mentor. We talk about mentors a lot. Mentors are a longer relationship. It's a long-lasting, ideally, relationship. Mentors would talk with you, unlike a coach. Mentors stay with you for a long run, not just for a set period of time until a goal is accomplished. A mentor is invested in your well-being. They're invested in seeing you change over time. A mentor will help you develop skills beyond the current job, unlike a coach who works to find solutions based on a specified task. So you may need someone in your life who can help you establish a short-term goal, but you also may need a mentor who is with you along the way for the entire journey. And then you have sponsors. A sponsor is more network-oriented. A sponsor will talk for you. So because of their professional influence, they can help you enter spaces that might not be granted to you otherwise. So a sponsor is talking about you when you're not in a room. They'll be able to sing your praises when you're not present. They're the person who can help you connect with that internship, that grant opportunity, that next job. And so that is the opportunities that a sponsor will give you when you have those people. Sometimes a coach can develop to become a mentor who may graduate to be a sponsor. Sometimes there is overlap, but ideally, as you are growing as graduate students and going into your profession, or even into your next graduate program, if you're going to continue your education, you think about who in my community, who can I, in the world I'm in, network, whether it be faculty, staff, other students, alumni, how can I work with these people to create these type of relationships that can help me build some confidence, that can help me take those next steps in my professional or educational career. There's an amazing chat conversation going on here. I really hope everyone's checking it out. Talking about this the double idea of double consciousness and having multiple identities and having to move into different spaces at different time. Thank you for sharing, William. Does SJSU offer programs for coaches, mentors, and sponsors? So, I just got here in December, so I do not know, but I imagine so. We do have career services, and maybe in the graduate program, maybe Amy can tell us more about that. There may be some programs there that we can connect with, but if there isn't, is there a space to have something created within the graduate school to kind of start setting some of that up for graduate students?
I can jump in really quickly here. So we are in the process of trying to obtain funding at the College of Graduate Studies to start a mentorship program. And our goal is to hopefully have some ways that students can find a mentor that might share some of the identities that the student has. Stay tuned, where we definitely know there's a need for this type of thing. And we are a relatively new college and we have a lot of ideas, and this is certainly one of them. But I would say in the meantime, you can always try and approach your graduate advisor if it's someone that you feel like you have a good relationship with, and just kind of ask around in your department. Or even outside of your department. And we're also going to hopefully offer some workshops where students might have a chance to network or get to know faculty, again, who might share their same identities or be from the same affinity group, so that they can see and network with professors outside of their program.
And Heather Johnson, thank you. That is a great, you're absolutely right. So in your professional associations for your field, one, they normally always have a graduate membership, which is super cheap. So if you have the means, encourage you to sign up for in a professional association, but there's normally always some type of mentorship program in those professional associations. I'm a part of a couple of professional associations for higher education, and we do have multiple mentorship programs. Also, if you're looking for something identity-based, we do have a number of cultural resource centers and task force on campus that could absolutely connect you with someone within their staff who they've been working with as well, if you're looking for something more identity-based. So something else if you all think about, it's easy to say, but we have to try to stop comparing ourselves to others. Graduate school is competitive. It can be very competitive, especially depending on which field you're in, which area of study you're in, where you may be going out for the same internships, the same postdocs, the same grants. It is competitive in nature. However, we have to try our hardest to stop comparing ourselves to others, because at the end of the day, the degree is ours. We're the ones trying to get the degree. We have to try to develop a healthy response to failure and to making mistakes. So I included this quote from Henry Ford: "Failure is the only opportunity to begin again more intelligently." So failure is, try to be optimistic, as failure is a way to restart. Failure is sometimes part of the process of being a graduate student. When I was trying to get IRB approval for my dissertation, it took me 3 tries to go to IRB. It was not a fun process, but someone explained to me and said, this is what IRB does, so don't take it personally. And once I realized that everyone else had an average of 3 times in my program, I was like, oh, so it's not me? Like, no, this is kind of what they do. So failure, there's learning and failure, and it's okay sometimes to fail. As well as separate your feelings from facts, which means you may feel like you're a failure, you may feel like you're not working to your potential, but has anyone actually told you that? Has a faculty member, has your advisor said to you, hey, you are not doing what you can do, you're not performing to the best of your ability? If it's just you telling yourself that, but your grades are saying otherwise, your opportunities you're receiving are saying otherwise, try your best to separate your feelings of self-doubt from what is actually happening. Understand that you're not alone. There are a lot of folks on this, in this little small webinar, on this call, and that means we all have these feelings of feeling doubtful and insecure about our place, whether it be in our academic programs or in our work. So it's so important that you understand you're not the only one with these feelings. it is important to know that there's a community, and create a community. If you have not started to do so, I highly encourage you to build a community on campus or off campus, folks you can turn to support you through those times when you are having those moments of self-doubt, that you can turn to and get that support. Sometimes it takes others seeing us for us to realize, hey, you know what, I'm hot stuff. It takes sometimes it takes someone else telling you that, because we often can't see it for ourselves. Celebrate even the smallest of wins. So if our goals are degrees in graduate programs. So what's happening between getting your degree and you showing up your first semester? There's a lot of work in between that. So celebrate finishing a semester, celebrate making an A, celebrate even the smallest of wins, because there are going to be days you're not going to have a great day. But remember, oh, I had that one amazing week where everything just went right. To try to celebrate even the smallest of wins. And when thinking about identity and those things, on a previous slide, we talked about feeling like the token and stereotypes and things of that nature. There may be times when you actually may be the diversity pick. You may be the person they selected because they felt like they need someone different on the pamphlet, on the front page of the pamphlet, right? But one quote that has stuck with me is from Associate Justice Sonia Sotomayor. She went to a conference, and she spoke at a conference I was at, where she said that as a Puerto Rican woman, she was often told that she only got certain access to certain things because she was a Puerto Rican and she was a woman. And she said to us in that crowd, she said, it doesn't matter how you got through the door. What matters is what you do once you get through it. So if someone accepts you into a program and it's kind of like, oh, we just needed somebody kind of who loves yellow shirts and you always on a yellow shirt, take that as a win. And once you show up through that space, work your butt off, right? It doesn't matter how you got through the door or what matters what happens when you get through it. And that's a mindset we have to have sometimes, even when we feel like we don't belong. We may feel like they only picked us because of an identity. It doesn't matter. You show up and you do the work, and you make people notice you in that space. So one thing I wanted to do, I have friends who are going through different levels of graduate programs, law school, medical school, you name the gamut. And I asked them to share some words of advice that got them through their graduate programs at professional school. One thing that stood out for me, one of my friends said, visualize success. And I said, what do you mean by that? They said, well, I thought about the job I wanted. And I thought about all the people who were in that job, and I would look up their resumes and what they had and said, that's all they did to get there. So that motivated me to know I am doing more than enough to be here. Someone said, we talk about when you may be the only one who looks like you, who has your ideas in that space, it's okay. Your voice matters. In many spaces, you will be the only one or one of few. Speak up and know that even in the uncomfortable moments, you deserve to be heard. Of course, once again, ask for help. It is okay to ask for help. Know that every day is not going to be a good day. Accept and receive the compliment. I will be honest, I still struggle with receiving compliments even to this day, beyond graduate school. But accept and receive the compliment. Folks don't just give out compliments just because. I mean, if you've done something good enough to receive that compliment, try to accept and receive it. We also think about sometimes we need others to see us, which means sometimes you have to surround yourself with folks who can see you when you can't see yourselves. Those are one of the things that I have learned to depend on. There are certain people in my circle who I know that if I say I'm having a hard time, I'm not ready for this. I was actually nervous about doing this presentation right now. As graduate students, they're so tough. You know, I teach graduate students, I do all the work, and they're like, you'll be fine. It's just like talking to your other students. But it took someone else telling me, you'll be good. When Amy reached out to me, I was like, me, really? Okay. So she saw something and we hadn't even met. I said, okay, I will go ahead and do it. And of course, my favorite is fake it till you make it. Sometimes we have to put a smile on our face and we have to push and imitate confidence and competence and have an optimistic mindset about a task to get through it. I am not naturally optimist. I'm very much a realist, but there are times where I have to say, give myself the positive self-talk and say, patience, we're going to do it. We're going to get up and we're going to go ahead. We're going to do this. We're going to knock out this presentation. We're going to knock out this paper. We're going to submit this thing we publish because I'm here for a reason. I have to remind myself that someone placed me here for a reason and I have to do the work to do this. Thank you, Christopher. Nice to write it in. And this is the quote that's very important to me. I actually have it, I'm currently facing a wall. I have a monitor on my laptop, and right above my monitors is printed. It's by Dr. Roxane Gay. She is an author and she's an educator and a podcaster, of course. And the quote is, "The one thing I do is remind myself that I belong in any room that I happen to be in. I belong in any discourse that I choose to be a part of. It doesn't mean that I'm more valuable than anyone else, but it's just that I belong here." And I have this printed out, like I said, above my monitor that I'm using, because I'm working from home right now, but I also have it in my bedroom. So I see it every time I leave my bedroom door, because there are times when you just don't feel great. There are times you have to wonder, is this where I belong? Is this for me? I'm kind of losing the passion for the work some days. But I remind myself, I'm in this space, I'm at this virtual table because I'm meant to be at this virtual table. And so I'm gonna have to I sometimes gotta hype my own self up because I belong here. So like I said earlier, these are gonna be some short slides because I'm hoping that we have a discussion. We've already started some things in the chat. So I don't know if people started submitting questions.
Sure, people can go ahead and start posting questions in the chat that you have. And if you would like, again, for it to not be someone that everyone sees, you can just send it to me personally, and then I will read it. Do you want me to, Patience, do you want me to read them to you, or how do you, as they come?
Well, I can see the ones that are coming directly to the group.
Okay, do you want to? Okay, then I'll just jump in if there's one that, if there's some that just come just to me.
Yes. So what books or podcasts do I recommend for imposter syndrome? So I'm a very serious person, I'm also a very silly person. So I have to have a lot of joy and light in my life. So I do recommend any type of fun podcasts that are gonna make you laugh. I love pop culture ones, but I mentioned Roxane Gay. Roxane Gay actually has a podcast called Here's to Slay with Dr. Tressie Cotton McCollum, both educators, both researchers, both writers. An amazing, amazing podcast. And they center women, in particular women of color, but they also have a lot of folks in those spaces. And when I'm just having a moment, they hype each other up, they hype other folks up, and they remind people, like, you belong here. So I definitely, yeah, Tressie is the best. I fangirl a little bit. So that's one of my favorite podcasts I listen to as well. A friend of mine actually is sending me like affirmation cards. I don't have them just yet, but I know they're available. And she's like, just pull a card and read the affirmation. So I said, okay, I will read the affirmation. So actually doing some affirmation cards as well. A recent book I read was by Elaine. I'm going to my other monitor, her last name. She used to be the editor of Teen Vogue magazine. She just released a book. Elaine, well, I'll put the link in there, and she talks about being enough. And her book is a little about her journey, but it also has amazing, amazing quotes and talks about obstacles that she's had to face. She's from California originally, so that may also tie into what as a experience. And I will drop the link of her book inside the chat.
I've got it, Patience. I have it. I can put it. Oh, looks like someone has the name. I'll put the name of
That's
it.
Brian. That is her. Yeah.
And then the book is called More Than Enough. I'll put the title in here.
Great book, and she actually went to Sac State, so she's a CSU alum. So great book.
Oops, there's a typo. See, I am a perfectionist, and you can't go back in the chat. So ignore the backwards colon, what, I don't even know what those parentheses. Thank you there. So it looks like there's a question on the chat for you, Patience.
I often worry that if I project confidence that it will be perceived as being arrogant. I'm not always great with social cues. Any suggestions? I understand. It can be difficult to be called the I word sometimes, which is intimidating. And often when you show confidence, and often when you're very aware of yourself, folks say you are being arrogant and you intimidate them. And there are times where if you know you've done everything right in that space, and you are what you say you are, and you're showing up, this does take practice. And I'm very honest, this has taken work over years, but I have learned to I continue to learn to ignore, my best to ignore it, because I can't, my job is not to control your feelings. I can't, I'm sorry, that's how you're interpreting what I'm doing. I'm sorry, that's how you're receiving it. But I have to show up in this space to the best of my ability. And if me showing up in this space to the best of my ability is negative for you, I'm sorry for you. Hopefully you can work through that. That sounds like more of a personal thing than does a me thing. Because we're asked to be confident, but not too confident. So I would definitely encourage you to don't dim yourself, continue to show up. Sometimes think about, if you are concerned about your confidence, maybe question, how much space am I taking up? Am I over talking people? Am I leaving people out? Am I ignoring people? Just doing those self checks for yourself. But if you're just doing your job or just performing well as a student, I say continue to do that. Or if it's something really bothering you, you also can check in with somebody and say, hey, are you okay? I noticed you reacted a certain way. If you're comfortable doing that, of course, if it's safe for you to do that. Jordan, did you have your hand up? That's our hand.
No, I was clapping about what you were saying.
Yes, Brene Brown. It's really good. Definitely recommend Brene Brown. Thank you, Jordan.
So I've got an anonymous question from a student. I'm working on a culminating portfolio. I'm struggling. My advisor only communicates in the group forum, and their responses are not really helpful. They have warned us not to seek help from others. They have shattered my confidence. What should I do?
One, because I'm going to suggest you reaching out to other folks, but that is concerning if you're not seeking help from others. Because I feel like it's a way you can seek help without someone doing your work for you. As someone who formerly used to do academic integrity work, if that's the concern. So if there is a concern that you need more support, I will seek it out. Perhaps as I'm looking at Amy can help you guide you to that space, right? Absolutely. To do in a way where you won't feel like you won't be retaliated against by your faculty member, your advisor, or whomever, but definitely seek that out. Because we want you to succeed. We want you to get a degree. So we don't want to put any unnecessary barriers in that. So the folks in your program, they want to help you. So please connect, I recommend, with Amy, Dr. Leslinger, privately, and see what you can do to get that support.
Yeah, I would second that. I mean, there's a couple of things that you could do in a situation like that. You could go to your department chair if you're comfortable doing that. If you're not comfortable doing that, you could come to myself or the other associate dean, Dr. Jeff Honda. He's a great guy. Both of us, our job is to help mitigate these types of issues, to give you advice, to intervene if that's what we decide that is necessary. So if you feel like there's any type of issues like this, or that you're being treated unfairly, or that a professor is somehow standing in the way of your success, then definitely reach out to me. We can make an appointment and kind of strategize from there. I also got another anonymous question for you patients. Oh, actually a couple are coming in. Any thoughts regarding how to identify when you actually need to improve on your skills, abilities in school or work? Oh, this is a great question because I experience this all the time versus experiencing just a lack of confidence due to imposter syndrome. So how do you know when you're just feeling like an imposter versus when you really need to actually kind of up your game?
That's what we talk about, the community, having the community and having those mentors, ideally, or a close advisor in your circle. A friend of mine, one of her quotes, I don't think I put it in the slide. She says, I surround myself with people who support me, but also put me in check, which means not a whole bunch of yes people who will say, hey, yeah, you are a hot mess, you need to pull it together. So ideally, hopefully you have folks you can trust, you can run things by, an advisor or a faculty member or someone else, an alum, someone who's been through the program. It would be awesome. Could probably be awesome to help you and support you and say, hey, this is what's going on. This is the work I'm producing. Am I doing my best, or am I really overthinking this? Definitely find a community that you trust to help you have those conversations. And I think it's important to note that you may not always find a community in your same space. So if you were at an undergraduate school, if you didn't come for graduate school and you went somewhere undergrad, and it's someone who's familiar kind of with your work, maybe go back to them, a professor you were close with, an advisor there, and say, hey, I'm going through this now. And I just want to, just check in to say, make sure I'm on the right path. I'm doing some things. Because there are times where I'm just being lazy. I can blame everybody, but it's me just being lazy. And then there are times where it's like, you know what, I am working as hard as I can be, and and there's nothing else I can do at this point. But I think it's important to have people who are going to be honest with you and affirm you, but also say, hey, you need to step it up because you're sliding a little bit.
Okay, so two great questions. The first is, if you do get to a leadership role, how can you check in with those around you to support your team, just to see if others feel that way, to be able to support them? So if you feel confident and you want to help mentor others in your field, how can you find a way to do that?
So one way I do that, I am part of a professional association. And so there's a mentorship program through one of my professional associations I'm heavily involved with, and I've gotten involved with as well. I'm also making myself available to, when I had my previous role, I had a larger staff. And so I made myself very available in terms of saying, I'm here to support you do X, Y, and Z. I'm here if you are looking to, what are your professional goals? What are you looking forward to do? How can I support you in doing that? It can be tough when you are a leader or a supervisor, because a mentor can't sometimes, I don't think a mentor can truly be your supervisor all the way, because the expectations are different. However, I can still serve in the role to support someone achieving professional goals or educational goals. So if I have a staff member who says, hey, I want to go back and get another degree, you can sit out and outline that. What does that look like in your current role? What programs are you looking at? And having those conversations with folks, but also letting folks know you're available, you're here, connecting with, we have a bunch of resource centers on our campus, connecting with them, knowing that the graduate school is trying to build a mentorship program. Say, how can I support you and all doing this? I'm not sure how the person identifies, but I got an email from the block. So the block is the resource center for Black and African-American students. They're creating a mentorship program as well. They're looking for mentors. So the work is being done. Just connect yourself with folks who work directly with students, or even other staff members. There's staff members who want to be mentored, faculty who want to be mentored. So definitely connect with other indices on campus.
Well, I'll ask you later, but I'm gonna ask who is doing the Black mentorship program. Just so to make sure that we're not doing too much overlap. But now there's another question. My question is, what advice would you give someone whose imposter syndrome stems from rooted trauma, self-hate, negative self-talk? I'm currently in therapy, but worried that I'll never get to where I feel good about my achievements.
I was going to recommend talking to someone, a professional. If you want, as someone who's an advocate for therapy and who does have a therapist two Tuesdays a month, we get together. I think perhaps if you all haven't had the conversation about these particular things, bring that up to them and say, hey, I really wanted to figure out how I can navigate these issues or move forward, because these are some things that I really want to tackle sooner than later. But anything is a process. Everything doesn't come quickly, but if you kind of tell your therapist, if you haven't had that conversation yet, and say, hey, this is important to me. I would love to have a look at some ways to tackle these issues because I am experiencing imposter syndrome. Hopefully that will help as well.
Okay, another question just came in. The reading workload for grad school requires speed reading and skimming skills to keep up, which has left me feeling like I'm not doing my job because I'm not mastering all the assigned material and sometimes having to be selective about what articles I really read. I'm doing well on assignments, but feel like people will find out and think I'm a slacker. Is this a common feeling? Yes, I'll let patients answer that, but yes.
Yes.
And I wish there was more formal discussion about the depth students should engage with material. This is a great question.
I would say yes. My master's is in mass comm, so I had to do a lot of reading. In my PhD is in conflict analysis and resolution. A lot of reading. I mean, read a book in a week. Like, well, who's going to read a book in a week? But that is a graduate school, and part of me feels like, at some level, some of the faculty don't expect you to read everything. I don't think they do. I think they expect you to pull out those key terms and key things. With my students, I say you need to read this. Be aware of these. You need to be aware of these key concepts. I honestly don't expect my students to read. They have a couple books they have to read. I don't expect them to read everything, but they need to know enough of the key concepts. However, maybe think about if you're worried about the retention of the information, retaining the information, maybe outlining things and things of that nature, or even connecting with other people in the class. Like, are you looking at this? What concept did you pull out of this? And maybe they saw something that you didn't. But there are going to be some faculty who say read everything, and they only talk about one chapter, and there are going to be some faculty who say just read one chapter, and that's going to be it. I don't think there's an expectation that you read and retain everything, as long as you can complete the assignments. But I would like Dr. Lessingberg also chime in on that one as well.
Yeah, it's funny because I definitely had that issue in graduate school, but to be perfectly honest, I'm having that issue now. There's so many things going on in our country and in the world. And I sometimes have this feeling that I should be aware of all of the nuanced detail of them so that I can be informed. My background's in sociology. I studied a lot about gender issues. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on with race right now. That's part of my job. So I'm constantly feeling like I'm not, doing my best, keeping up with all of the information that's out there. But I'm a single mom and I have this job that's very intense, and it's just not possible. So it's kind of, it's real. I think it happens at every level of your career. Like I had posted in the chat, I know a lot of faculty and administrators who feel the same way. So I think there's a lot of people that feel this way. And I think part of it is our culture too. It's like, there's so much information just coming at us all the time. And this is a really challenging time right now. So I think it's also important for everyone just to give themselves permission to do the best that they can and not to feel like, you have to read every single word. Like I said, I struggled with that in graduate school and I still struggle with it today. And the last thing I'll add is I'll admit that I have gone to therapy for some of these issues with anxiety and not feeling like I'm good enough. I think we should destigmatize access to mental health resources when needed. And, I have just acknowledged that as a perfectionist and an overachiever, that I'm always going to feel this way to some extent. Like it's never going to just magically go away, that it's just something with every day, like Patience was saying, some days are better than others. Some day you have to give yourself more of a pep talk than in other days. And you just have to be really gentle with yourself, especially right now. That would be my advice.
Compassion for others and compassion for self. When I do restorative justice work, so often we'll build community standards, now ask folks, give me one word are you committed to in this process? The word I always use is grace. I say grace for myself because I need people to extend grace to me, but also grace for me to extend to others. And we have to have grace and compassion with ourselves. No one expects you to know everything at all things. That's what they call us, lifelong learners. If graduate school was the end stop, then people who are in lawyers and doctors, medical doctors wouldn't have to go out and do all these recertifications every year if that was it, right? I wouldn't have to do all these 50 million things with the chancellor's office every 6 months if my job was, if I knew everything, that was it. But encourage you to get a community together, people talking about study groups, and no, you are not alone. You're not the only person trying to figure out how to navigate reading 5 million things at once. It is, yeah, you're not the only one at all. And sometimes you have to ask yourself, am I doing all this reading because I have to do it or because I'm choosing to do it, right? Because sometimes they have recommended readings. So maybe I don't do the recommended readings and only focus on the core things for the course. And if I have time to get to recommended readings and recommended resources, then I'll glance at those, but really focus on what I have to do to get through the various assignments that I have to do for the course.
So we definitely have time for a couple more questions if anyone wants to either do it anonymously or post it in the chat.
This is a great chat, a lot of recommendations and resources. So if you haven't seen what's going on in the chat, I feel like community is getting built in the chat right now. So love it. Okay, we have a question in the chat. What kind of mental health services and counseling does San Jose State offer to students, including special session students not on campus? So I know that counseling services, CAPS is still open. They're seeing people remotely, as well as they do some kind of, they do specialized groups for identity groups. I believe that's all on their website. They do offer that for students. And I just imagine as things go on, they may offer more, but those things are definitely being offered. They never stop offering counseling services for students. And as a student, you get that for free. So.
Special session students are different. So,
Okay.
And I am going to admit that I don't know everything about that. So if you have specific questions, just email me and I can get that information out to you. So if you're a special session student and you want to know if you are able to access a specific resource, reach out to me and I'll get back to you. And people are asking, there's been 2 asks. Will this be posted? Yes, this will be posted on the College of Graduate Studies website. I'm not sure the link yet, but we'll make sure that on the first page, we tell you where the link is. And then someone else is, someone wanted to ask if people could turn their camera on if they're comfortable. So if people want to, because it could feel a good way to connect, I'll leave that up to you. You certainly don't, no one has to if they don't want to. And then are there CAPS therapy sessions available to recently graduated students? Or unfortunately, the CAPS resources are only available to matriculated students. So you have to be a student on campus. Services are not available to students who have already graduated, unfortunately.
You might want to contact them to see what services they can refer you to in a community for as a recently graduated student. I also dropped a link. They have a whole page about some self-work you can do without a counselor, to different resources to help you do some self-work as well.
We have about 5 minutes. Any last minute questions? So a question is, where is a good place to find a good therapist? So it depends on a lot of factors. You can get therapists through the university. If you don't want to, it depends on your insurance plan. I have found Yes, the forever challenge of finding a good therapist. Sometimes, you know, if you are able to afford to, or if you're looking for a therapist that takes your specific insurance, if you go to Psychology Today, I believe is the name of the website, it often lists a ton of different therapists in the area, lists what their specialties are, what types of insurance that they take. So that can be a good, yeah, that could be a good resource. And I can put that into the chat. But also just kind of word of mouth. So if you know someone that's seeing a therapist that they like, and maybe that therapist is full, you can ask them to recommend someone. So just kind of asking around, and I'm not sure if CAPS are able to give names of therapists outside of the university. But if you are looking for more information about that, again, you can always feel free to email me.
And there are therapists who work, if you don't have insurance, there are some therapists who work on a sliding scale, or you pay what you can. So they also have therapists who are solely virtual, solely online, and their online therapy has definitely boomed in the past year and a half. So definitely a lot of options out there.
I'm about to put the link to therapists, and then you can just type in the city or the zip and get a lot of, there we go, get some referrals that way. I myself have found a really good therapist on there.
And I'll put the chat. A friend of one of my friends works at a very rural institution, so they don't have any options in their small town. So they have to use Talkspace, which is solely virtual therapy.
Okay, well, I would really just like to thank Patience for taking the time out of her busy schedule to do this with us today. There was so much interest in this, and so I'm really glad that we were able to do this. And thank you all for joining us on a Friday afternoon. I know someone had said that they had hoped that we will do more programming like this, and that's definitely my intent, is to try to keep these things going virtually and in person, and recording things, because I know that a lot of students can't always make the events when we have them. So please look for the link if you're wanting to revisit this on our College of Graduate Students website. Hopefully it will be up there next week. And yeah, thanks so much, Patience. This was a really great conversation. And just remember, to all of you, that you're not alone. I think if anything, this workshop has shown us that this is something that everyone struggles with at many different stages of their career. And y'all are doing a great job. You know, this is not an easy time right now. So I hope everyone has a really good weekend.
Thank you all for having me come to your space. I dropped my email address. I'm the only Patience in all 23 CSUs. Actually, check once. Easy to find me and connect if you have any questions or anything else moving forward.
Thank you, Patience. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was excellent.
Thank you both. Take care.
Amy, I sent you a message. It sounded like a bunch of people were interested in potentially having a Discord to keep this conversation going. Is that, if I send you the link, is that something that you can send around when you share the presentation?
So the problem is with Discord, and this is a discussion that's happening at a higher level at the university, is that it's not accessible always. So a lot of students are using it. A lot of professors are actually using it. But the Center for Faculty Development is not super into it because it's not an accessible platform. Yeah, so we can't officially put it out as part of, you know, what we recommend. Okay. But if I'm trying to think about how you could do something like, you could do it like kind of on a grassroots level, like student initiated, but obviously it would be
Right.
hard to reach everyone on this panel. Let me think about that. If you,
Okay.
why don't you shoot me an email at some point just to keep it on my radar, and
For sure.
I can think about that, and I can even check in with if there's been any developments, because the last I had heard about that was a couple of months ago about, using.
Okay.
like,
Yeah, it would be
Discord
great
Slack.
if there was something that was supported by the university.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those
but-
are really popular channels right now, given the situation that we're in. And I think a lot of students and professors are finding them really useful. It's just that officially in my university hat, it's not something that we can sponsor. So. Okay, I think that's that. Anything else? Thank you so much, Patience.
Oh, thank you all.
I'm so glad that you recommended Tressie, because she actually came and spoke at San Jose State a while back. Because, you know, she's a sociologist, and one of my sociology friends like made a connection and brought her here, and she was awesome. So
I left Long Beach. I was trying to get them to either get Tressie or Roxanne Gay. I'm like, Roxanne lives in LA. Like, we can get her.
yeah, that would be another. I follow both of them on Twitter, so that would be a great thing. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
So, bye.